the story goes that the Chinese mandarins 5,000 years ago are said to have employed virgins to cut the white tea with golden scissors. It is said to have fallen into a golden bowl, and they say that the only part of the human anatomy that touched the tea were the lips.
At 2,000 Australian dollars per kilo, virgin white tea is the finest and one of the most expensive organic products in the world.
A tea untouched by hand, and to say that it's also untouched by any kind of chemical input. So it has a certain allure among the sophisticated Western world.
But what would happen if all our food was organic? Would we be healthier? Could we afford it? And how can something as harmless as organic food lead to this? In Australia, when it comes to food, we're spoilt for choice. But consumers are becoming a bit fussier and they're demanding change.
COVID, it's forced everyone to think about their health, definitely, and what we eat and how it's produced is a big part of that.
For nearly 6 decades, the Cathels family have been selling produce. Hannah is the 3rd generation. But in recent years, they've turned their focus to organic.
We branched out into organic produce because there was demand for it. Consumers are telling their retailers they want to buy it, and they were telling us that there was demand for it in the market.
Hannah's uncle runs the farming operation here in Batlow.
Hey, Ann.
Morning.
How are you going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Really, the reason to trial organics was to see, one, if we could do it, and then trying to look for a point of difference that, might favour our orchard in, selling our produce, maybe even get a higher price for the apples or whatever. And it was then, to try and learn how the process works.
So was it a financial decision?
Oh, yes.
According to Woolworths, demand for organic food has grown by 30% in the past 3 years. The Australian industry is worth an estimated $2.3 billion, and that's tipped to double by 2025. But for the Cathels, the benefits of organic go way beyond the bank account.
The value in organic produce, it's not in the appearance the way traditional produce is. It's in the eating experience, it's in the nutritional value, and it's in the benefit that it is having to the environment. At the end of the day, what we've learnt that there are organic farming methods that make conventional farming more profitable or more sustainable. If it's better for the farmer's bottom line and it's better for the planet, then everyone should be doing it.
But with the organic market accounting for just 2% of all fresh produce sales in Australia, it's still a niche. So an entire country going organic would be impossible. Or would it?
Humans must be in sync with nature rather than work against it. We require a new agricultural revolution that has sustainability at its core.
In 2019, Sri Lanka's President Gotabaya Rajapaksa came to power, ruling alongside his brother, the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. His presidential campaign centred around a green vision that included turning the country organic within 10 years. But in April 2021, he made a bold move.
The government of Sri Lanka banned the import of artificial fertilizers, pesticides and weedicides.
And like that, the country became 100% organic overnight. But this decision wasn't entirely about saving the planet. The pandemic took an estimated $3.6 billion out of Sri Lanka's tourism sector. And subsidising chemical fertiliser for farmers was costing the government $400 million a year. Many experts believed that these fertilisers were being overused, causing serious health problems. So going organic was an attempt to save lives, the environment, and the economy. It caught many off guard. But for others, this was the moment they'd been waiting for.
Organic agriculture has been practiced in Sri Lanka for at least 3,000 years. So you have to have the humility to understand that this is nothing new. This is what humanity did through the ages, and we lost the knowledge.
Dr Ranil Senanayake is an ecologist and organic guru. He was one of the first students to formally study organic agriculture at Berkeley, California in 1971. But when he brought these ideas back to Sri Lanka, he was shunned.
Back then, organic agriculture was almost synonymous with hippies. There was no market for it. It's only the people who were sort of committed to nature who was committed to organic agriculture.
But Ranil had a vision: to create farms that would complement the natural environment rather than work against it.
You can see the problem. The people get onto these hillsides and they just work it so that it just erodes down constantly, and you can see that. There's hardly any cover, and that would be the future. This, we say, are the new landscapes we want for a sustainable Sri Lanka into the future.
According to Ranil, forest and farms go hand in hand.
We use both native species as well as exotic species. Here
This place used to be a degraded tea estate. He spent the past 30 years transforming it, planting every tree and literally building it from the ground up.
Did you build all these stairs?
Everything here, mate. Everything.
What's the importance of this place here?
Here is a demonstration, because most farmers don't believe that they can have a diverse farm with different crops all integrated and make it a commercial success. Now, we have farmers who have their own farms who are coming here and working with us to learn how to develop further their farms to become like this. Okay, now let me show you something here.
Ranil supports a wider shift to organic farming. He says modern agriculture has gone too far down the wrong track.
It got lost to another language, the language of science, which did not take the time to look at the values of traditional agriculture, but went chasing the technology that was available to create more crops. And that's, I believe, where we went wrong.
In the 1960s, agriculture across the globe went through a revolution, a transformation driven by technology and agrochemicals in a bid to have worldwide food security. These chemicals, mainly derived from fossil fuels, have made farming more efficient and profitable, requiring less labour and land to feed the world's population. But it signalled a shift away from traditional knowledge.
It is totally dumbed down agriculture, because now you don't need to know anything about a plant, what it does, or how to protect it. Everything comes from the bottle. Okay, and එහෙනම් මාත් එක්ක මම පිටිපස්සේ එන්න අපි යන් අර අපේ මේ දියර පොර තියෙනවනේ. ඒක බලන්න යන්. දැන් මේකේ මොකද තියෙන්නේ? දැන් මේකේ මොකක්ද දාලා තියෙන්නේ? කොළ වර්ග. පත්‍ර වර්ග. හොඳයි. එහෙනම් දැන් මේක මාළු අපෝයි ගඳයි. So mixture of the different fermented liquids that we make, that is then used as a fertilizer replacement for all of our crops, and it works wonderfully.
When chemical fertilizers were banned, educating farmers on the alternatives became the key to implementing Sri Lanka's organic dream.
නිකන් සල්ලි වේදන් කරන ගෙදර ඉන්නේ. මේ වගේ එකක් හදා ගන්න. වේදන් නැහැනේ. වේදමත් අඩුයි. හොඳ ප්‍රතිඵලයක් ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. අපේ මානසික විතරයි. ඊට පස්සේ අපේ ඇඟවල ලෙඩත් අඩුයි. ඇයි වස විස නැහැනේ.
The concern surrounding chemicals and sickness was one of the main reasons that President Rajapaksa pulled the trigger on this bold plan. Sri Lanka has one of the highest rates of chronic kidney disease in the world. And many, Ranil included, point the finger squarely at the overuse of agrochemicals.
I mean, it's bloody obvious to all of us, right, what happened. We changed our agriculture, and the moment we changed agriculture, we also had a collapse of the rural health.
I'm heading to the heartland of Sri Lanka's rice-growing industry. Estimates suggest that almost 23% of the population here have chronic kidney disease.
මගේ නම ගාමිණී ආරේරත්න. වයස අවුරුදු 62යි. මම ජීවන වෘත්තිය විදියට කරන්නේ විගෝචන. අපේ මේ දෙවෙනි පරම්පරාව කියන්නේ තාත්තා විගෝචන කරා. ඒකට මම දෙවෙනි පරම්පරාව. ගොවියෙක් වෙච්ච එක ගැන ආඩම්බරයි. ඒ වුණාට දැන් වර්තමානයේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන තත්ත්වය ගැන කනගාටුයි.
දෝනි එන්නකො මේ පොල් ගාලා දෙන්නකො. අද මොකද උනේ ස්පිතාලෙත්?
ගියා ඉතින් වෙනදා විදිහටම මේ ડોක්ටර් රිපෝට් ටික බැලුවා. රිපෝට් නෝමල්. ඉතින් මේ අර පරණ බෙහෙත් ටිකම පුරුදු විදිහටම බෙහෙත් ටික දීලා බොන්න කිව්වා මාසෙකින් ආයෙත් එන්න කිව්වා. ඒක තමයි.
වෙනම කුච්චි වෙන්නේ.
වෙන විශේෂ දෙයක් නැහැ.
Gamini has chronic kidney disease. It causes high blood pressure, fatigue and nerve damage. And if not managed properly, it could lead to kidney failure, dialysis or death.
2012 තමා දැනගත්තේ. එහෙම කරන්න ගියේ මට නිකන් ඇඟට පොඩි තෙහෙට්ටුවක් වගේ දැනුණා. මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ පිළිබඳව එහෙම නිකන් කතාවක් තිබුණානේ වකුගඩු මට නිකන්.
So how does your dad's condition affect him?
තාත්තා ගොඩක් මහන්සිලා වැඩ කරපු කෙනෙක්. එයාට දැන් මේ අසනීප තත්ත්වයේ ඉඳලා එයා ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ අමාරුයි යට වැඩ කරන්න.
What do you think is causing the kidney condition?
ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේ ජලයත් එක්කම තමයි මේ සම්බන්ධතාවය තියෙන්නේ කියන එක තමයි මගේ නම් විශ්වාසය. නමුත් මම විශ්වාස කරනවා පොහොර කියන්නේ වස නෙවෙයි කියලා. මගේ අදහස පොහොර කියන්නේ වස නෙවෙයි. පොහොර වල රසායනික සංයුතියක් තියෙනවා.
What's causing the rise in kidney disease here is inconclusive. But according to the World Health Organization, the main suspects are groundwater pollution and agrochemicals.
චූටි බබා වෙලට ගිහින් එන්නම් ඈ.
But Gamini says there's something having a much greater impact on his health, family and future. And that's the country's move to organic farming. The government had promised to distribute organic alternatives to the banned fertilizers, but there wasn't enough to go around, meaning many crops were sown without.
So Gamini, tell me, what's wrong with this crop here? What's the problem?
දැන් මේ ගොයන් මේ ගහ බොහොම සරලව හිතුවොත් මේක කුසෙන් අඩුයි. වර්ධනය අඩුයි. වර්ධනය අඩුයි කියන්නේ පෝෂණය අඩුයි. නයිට්‍රජන් අඩුයි. ඒතර වර්ධනය අඩුයි කියලා කියන්නේ මේකේ අස්වැන්න අඩුයි.
Up until now, Sri Lanka had been self-sufficient in rice production. But after this harvest, that's in doubt.
What kind of losses are we looking at this year?
50-50.
50% loss.
lost.
So do you blame the chemical ban for this drop in yield?
Oh, then අපි little baby එතට එයාලට කෑම දෙන්න ඕනනේ හැදෙන්න. එතකොට එයාට කෑම අඩු වුණොත් එයාට මන්ද පෝෂණය හැදෙනවා. ඒ වගේ තමයි මේ ගොයන් ගහට. ඒක අපිට කෝපයට මං විතරක් නෙවෙයි මේ වගා කරන සියලුම ගොවීන් කෝපයටපත් වුණා. ගොවීන් ඉල්ලීම් කරා මේක කරන්න එපා කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ උද්ඝෝෂණ කරා. පෙළපාලි ගියා. මිනිස්සු මේකට විරුද්ධව මේ කටයුත්ත කරන්න එපා කියලා.
For weeks, Gamini and farmers from across the country protested. They burnt effigies of the agriculture minister, rallying against this decision to turn them organic with no transition time, education, or even fertilizer alternatives. So with crops failing and around 25% of the country employed by agriculture, farmers like Gamini are facing an uncertain future.
Would you encourage the next generation to take up farming?
නේද? ඒ කියන්නේ දෙයක් මොකක් නැති ඒකෙන් ජීවත් වෙන්න බැරි නම් එතකොට දැන් අපිට කියන්න වෙනවා නම් අපේ දරුවන්ට මේකෙන් අයින් වෙන්න කියලා. හරි කනගාටුයි. හේතුව තමයි අපි මේ ජීවත් වෙච්චි ඒ ජීවිතෙන් අයින් වෙන්න කියන්නේ.
I'm in Sri Lanka, a country that has recently banned all synthetic agrochemicals in a bid to go 100% organic. But with failing crops, rising food costs, and a quarter of the nation dependent on agriculture, the fallout is reaching far beyond the fields and into the towns and cities.
No water, no petrol, no food, anything is no, yeah. Everything is finished. இது காரணமண்டா அரசாங்கத்தில் இருக்கிற மனுஷரவதி பெரிய பெரிய தலைகள்.
So this is Peta Markets in the heart of Colombo. I want to go inside and see what Sri Lankans really think about the country's drive to be 100% organic.
අස්සන් අඩුවීම දේ අද ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ජනතාවටම බලපාලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අස්සන නෙලා ගන්නීමේ අපහසුතාවය මත අස්සන අඩුයි. ඒකෙන් තමයි මිල ගණන් වැඩි වෙලා ඉහළ වෙලා ගිහිල්ලා අද ගොඩක් අපහසුතාවයට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ.
The policy is now hitting the hip pocket of all Sri Lankans, despite concerns raised by the nation's best and brightest.
I want it recorded that we responsibly decline to support the country in this endeavour to go organic.
Representing almost 70% of the country's agricultural exports, tea is easily Sri Lanka's most famous and valuable crop.
Come in. Hi, Bill.
And within that industry, Herman Gunaratne is royalty.
Hi. Can we get some more tea, David, please?
Herman's the former head of Dilmar and personal friend of President Rajapaksa. He's been in the tea game for over 50 years and pulls no punches.
I think the government liked the allure of telling the world that this is the organic country because it's fashionable. So it has a certain allure among the sophisticated Western world who are not grounded in reality at all. You know, they are living in the clouds. No country in the world has gone entirely organic, while they were advising Sri Lanka to go organic.
Herman has skin in the game because the product he's most famous for is actually organic.
This is virgin white tea. As you can see, it's very light in color. And in my opinion, this is the only tea in the world that is completely untouched by human hands. The white tea pluckers are somewhere there.
This is the virgin white tea here.
Yeah. You need a trained eye to distinguish the white tea.
You definitely do. I didn't pick that.
At 2,000 Australian dollars per kilo, this is one of the most expensive teas in the world.
Why is it organic?
See, it's a complete package that we're offering. A tea untouched by hand. And what better also to say that it's also untouched by any kind of chemical input. I mean, I'm trying to get to the organic is fashionable. Shall I say that? All the Colombo 7 ladies and the rich ladies in Australia would like to drink organic stuff and eat, and consume organic food.
On a personal note, what does tea mean to you?
My whole life. I mean, everything I've done with tea. And I must say, I haven't done too badly, you know. David, get some cake for these people.
Herman knows what it takes to grow organic tea.
Thank you, Will.
He was briefly on the task force overseeing the country's organic transition.
So I repeatedly told the people in power not to go into this because they are going to eventually have to pay an enormous price for this.
Would you say that the very thing you warned the president about has come true?
Yeah. Truer than I thought. So really my view is that we shouldn't be talking about what happened. Organic agriculture is a failure if you are trying to do it overnight.
After sustained protests, failed harvests and sky-high inflation, just 7 months after the decision to go organic, President Rajapaksa backflipped and allowed chemicals back into the country. But the subsidies have not been reinstated, and the government has offered $200 million in compensation to farmers. But that's a pittance to what the country's lost.
$4 million 400ක් ඉතුරු කරගන්න කරපු මේකෙන් $1 million 2400ක් සම්පූර්ණයෙන් මුළු රටට අහිමි වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Is organic a dirty word now?
මං විතරක් නෙවෙයි. මිනිස්සු කාබනික කියන වචනයටත් වෛර කරනවා දැන්. ඒ කියන්නේ මිනිස්සු ඒ තරම්ම හෙම්බත් වුණා මේකෙන්.
Sri Lanka is in the grips of its worst financial crisis in 70 years. Foreign reserves are running out, and so are food supplies, medicine and fuel. Protests have turned to deadly riots, with tear gas fired at angry crowds. With violence erupting nationwide, the Prime Minister has resigned, and the presidency of his younger brother hangs by a thread. The shift to organic wasn't the only action fueling this crisis, but it's played a part, and it will take a long time for Sri Lanka and its farmers to recover.
So given everything you've been working for here, how did it feel to see it fail like that?
It's like building a bridge slowly, and some idiot in a car comes and crashes into the bridge and ruins the entire foundations that you're making. I mean, you're doing this work slowly and methodically, and some idiot comes, and destroys the structure.
In defiance, or perhaps defence, of this organic tragedy, Ranil's asked me to visit the farm of one of his very first students, Atula.
He branched out on his own and he created an organic farm. And he became an extremely successful organic farmer, supplying vegetables into the city.
About 80% of Sri Lanka's farms are around this size. It's a shade under 5 acres.
Here we are. ආයිබෝන්ඩ කොහොම කාලෙකට පස්සේනේ මේ හොඳට බලා ගන්නවා නේද මට පේනවා ලස්සනට තියෙනවා අප්පා ඒක තමයි දැන් මේගොල්ලෝ බලන්න ඕස්ට්‍රේලියාවෙන් ඇවිල්ලා
Although the Australian and Sri Lankan organic landscape is vastly different, the motives and indicators for success are the same.
Look around here. Look at the people engaged, the labourers, the people being paid, and speak to the operators of these farms. Atula has been making a profit of these farms over 10 years, I think.
Is it scalable to large-scale agriculture?
This, in the Sri Lankan context, is large scale. What you're seeing now, in the Sri Lankan context, is large scale. If this is repeated over and over and over again, it means more and more jobs and more clean production.
Like many, Ranil hopes that the last year is just a disastrous step in the right direction, and that a transition to organic is possible if farmers are given the knowledge and time to change.
It has done damage, not irreparable, because the world is waking up to the fact that we need clean food. So the market for organic is going to grow. There's no two words about that, right? And the sooner we get ready to supply the world with clean food, the better off we will be.